being allegory in many ways. And also that we need to learn from history. If you have a Bible, turn to chapter 2 of Luke. This is a familiar story, but there's more in it than sometimes we tend to think about. I'm going to start reading at verse 42. And when he was 12 years old, they went up to Jerusalem after this custom of the feast. And when they had fulfilled the days as they returned, the child Jesus tarried behind in Jerusalem, and Joseph and his mother knew not of it. But they, supposing him to have been in the company, went a day's journey, and they sought him among their kinfolk and acquaintance. And when they found him not, they turned back again to Jerusalem, seeking him. And it came to pass that after 3 days they found him in the temple, sitting in the midst of the doctors, both hearing them and asking them questions. And all that heard him were astonished at his understanding and answers. And when they saw him, they were amazed. And his mother said unto him, Son, why have you thus dealt with us? Behold, your father and I have sought thee sorrowing. And he said unto them, How is it that you sought me? Did you not know that I must be about my Father's business? Some places say, in my Father's house. And they understood not the thing which he spoke unto them. And he went down with them, and came to Nazareth, and was subject unto them. But his mother kept all these sayings in her heart. And Jesus increased in wisdom and stature, and in favor with God and man. This is a familiar story, which we've all probably heard many times before, but let's think about it for a minute. How would you leave a child behind? I mean, this is something which is difficult to understand in many ways. But from Nazareth to Jerusalem is about a week's journey. So these people went to the feast every year, as was their custom, taking a week to get there approximately, and a week to get home again. And the feast itself was about a week in length. So this is 3 weeks out of their life, every year, away from their work, away from their jobs, away from their family, away from their flocks, and their income. But they did this. This was the custom of the Jews. They would go down to the temple in Jerusalem at least once, sometimes twice a year. When they get there, they may stay the week, they may stay a few days. Now it said that when Jesus was 12, they took him down. At the age of 12, you changed. The Jewish child changed from being born a son of the covenant, which he was, from the time of his dedication or his birth until about the age of 12, when he became a son of the commandment. And he was then felt to be of an age where he could sit and understand and hear by understanding what was being spoken of in the temple. So this may have been Jesus' first time at the temple, in the temple, listening to the rabbis. So he was there for 2, 3, 4, up to 7 days. It was a custom on the last day for many of the pious Jewish families to go back to the temple and pray before leaving for home. This was probably what Jesus and Mary and Joseph did. Now on the way home, there'd be a large contingent of people. And it was sort of like a party time. There was some joyousness and eating and feasting and talking. It was the custom for the women and children to go a little ahead and the men to stay a little behind. And Jesus, being at that transition stage, could have been with the women and children, or could have been with the men. And obviously the mother thought he was with Joseph, and Joseph thought he was with Mary. So it's understanding probably how he was left behind. But the problem is, it's a symbolic thing. Because when we all get busy with our lives, with what we're doing, and leave Jesus behind. This is the idea. We all leave Jesus behind. We think about other things. You get a snowstorm or a rainstorm, people don't come to church. They traveled a week to get to the temple. But we leave Jesus behind. And it's one of the factors that happens in modern life. We get so busy that we forget him. We leave him behind. Now, it's said too that he was amazing, the answers that he sought, the answers that he gave, the questions that he asked, and he stood. He stood and sat with the rabbis. People sometimes say that Jesus didn't understand his divinity until he was baptized, but this is an indication that he probably did, because he had the answers, he had the knowledge, he had the experience and education to talk with these learned individuals. It says in Isaiah, "Unto us a child is born, but unto us a son is given." It doesn't say a son is born. Because what we have is a son who's been with us forever, now in a child, a baby that was born. So this Jesus, who was 12 years old physically, was eons old spiritually. Unto us a child is born, but unto us a son is given. So this whole idea about Jesus being left behind because the family, in essence, got too busy to watch out for him. Now, go over to 2 Kings for a minute. 2 Kings talks about the kingship of Israel. And it's a long session, a long passage. I'm not going to read it, but basically what it says is after King Hezekiah died, chapters 18 to 23. So it's a long session. After King Hezekiah died, King Manasseh came to the throne, and he was not a good king. He did not follow God's ordinances, God's commandments. He in fact started worshiping other gods. He in fact started building altars and stages to these other gods inside the temple. The son, the king that followed him, named Ammon, was no better. So they really desecrated the temple, even though many of the pious Jewish people kept going there, believing that what they were hearing, what they were receiving, was the same as it always had been. When King Ammon died, Josiah came to the throne in chapter 22. And he was more of the usual good Jewish king. And one of the things he started to do was to restore the temple, to tear down the altars that had been made to other gods, and to start going back to the gods, to the God of Jewish history, the Jewish God, Jehovah. When they did this, they found something. They found the book of the law. The book of the law was the Torah, was the sacred book of the Hebrew people, which was a center place in the temple. It was a book that represented God to the people. And over the reigns of Manasseh and Ammon, this had been lost. And when they were recovering, when they were restoring the temple again, they found the book. They found the book that had been lost. It says in verse 13 of chapter 22, Inquire of the Lord for me and for the people and for all Judah concerning the words of this book that is found. For great is the wrath of the Lord that is kindled against us, because our fathers have not hearkened unto the words of this book, to do according unto all that is written concerning us. In chapter 17, it is because they have forsaken me, and have burned incense unto other gods, that they might provoke me to anger with all the works of their hands. Therefore my wrath shall be kindled against this place, and shall not be quenched. So in Luke, we have Jesus being forgotten. Back in Kings, we have the book of the law that was forgotten and lost. This book, Why Jesus, by Rabbi Zacharias, I want to read what he says about the church, because it's implicable. Churches that do justice to the message of Christ and his claim upon our lives are rare. Churches, and one critic to me, are country clubs for the nice people. They are really not so nice to everyone else. The legalism of the church has disenfranchised so many that the church has found itself speaking to just the handful who will agree with its castigations, and have lost the many who need its healing message of love. In other words, the church indicates that in many ways it has lost Christ and has lost the book, just as happened in olden times. See, what happens in the past is applicable today.
Yes.
Have we lost Christ? Have we lost the book? Just something to think about.